It's past midnight in Austin, Texas, and the whole city is dark. No streetlights, no lamps, just black. And somewhere out in that black, a man is moving. He picks a lock. He steps inside a little cabin where a woman is fast asleep, and he pulls her, right out of her bed, out the door, into the yard. No dog barks, no scream, nothing. Just silence. By morning she's dead, and this is only the beginning. 3 years before anyone in London ever whispers the name Jack the Ripper, something is already hunting the streets of Austin. And nobody, not the police, not the detectives, not the armed men patrolling in the dark, nobody can figure out who he is. I'm Cole, and this is Midnight Files. So let's go back. 1884, Austin, Texas. Back then, Austin's a city on the rise. Thousands of people, brand new hotels, a fancy new Capitol building going up stone by stone. Everybody thinks this little frontier town is about to become something great. But there's one thing Austin doesn't have yet: light. When the sun goes down, the whole place just goes pitch black. No street lamps. Nothing. After dark, people lock their doors, blow out their candles, and stay inside. Because once night falls in Austin, you can't see a thing. And that darkness? That's exactly what he needs. It starts on the night of December 30th, 1884. Her name is Molly Smith. She's about 25 years old, a cook living in the servants' quarters behind a home on Pecan Street. That night, she's asleep, and someone comes in, carrying a knife and an axe. Her boyfriend, Walter Spencer, is there too. He's attacked in his sleep, beaten, badly hurt, but somehow he survives. Molly doesn't. They drag her out of that room, out into the yard, and by the time they find her the next morning, there's a deep, gaping wound in her head. Blood everywhere. So much blood it looks like she's almost floating in it. And here's the thing. Nobody panics. Not yet. Austin looks at it and figures. It's a one-time thing. A robbery gone wrong, maybe. Some private grudge. A single terrible night. So the winter passes. Spring comes. And people start to forget. They shouldn't have. May 1885. A young cook named ELIZA SHEL is working for a doctor's family in town, and one night he comes back. When they find ELIZA, her head has been nearly split in two, with an axe. Weeks later, another one, IRENE CROSS, a servant stabbed over and over. Her attacker cuts her so badly the newspaper says it looks like she'd been scalped. And now people start counting. 1, 2, 3. All of them women. All of them working as servants. All of them attacked in the dead of night, in the exact same way. Silent, brutal, and gone before anyone could raise the alarm. There's a writer living in Austin at this time. A young man named William Sidney Porter. You probably know him by the name he wrote under, O. Henry. And in a letter to a friend, half joking, half horrified, he calls the killer something that sticks. The Servant Girl Annihilator. And the name spreads like wildfire. But here's the part that's hard to say out loud. In the beginning, a lot of Austin doesn't really care. Because the victims are black. The papers point fingers into the black community. And a whole lot of white Austin treats it like it's someone else's nightmare. Something happening over there. He's about to make sure nobody gets to look away. The attacks don't stop. They get worse. August. A woman named CLARA DICK is attacked and barely lives. Then comes the one that breaks something in this city. August 30th. Her name is Mary Remy, and Mary Remy is 11 years old. He drags her out of the house, into a wash house out back. And what he does to that little girl, I'm not going to spell out, but he stabs her straight through the ear. Her mother, Rebecca, is attacked that same night. Rebecca survives. Mary does not. An 11-year-old child. And Austin finally understands, this is not a grudge. This is not a robbery. This is a monster. And he is not finished. September 28th. A young couple, Gracie Vance and Orange Washington, sweethearts, are asleep in the quarters behind a house near the university. He comes in with the axe again. Both of them are killed. The newspaper describes what he did to Gracie in words I'll never forget. It says her head was almost beaten into a jelly. And there were 2 other people in that room. 2 friends, Lucinda Body and Patsy Gibson. They're attacked too, but they live. Which means, for the first time, there are witnesses. So the police asked the obvious question, what did he look like? And that's when it gets strange. Because the answers don't match. One says he's a white man. Another says his skin is dark. Someone says he'd smeared black soot all over his face to hide it. Someone else swears he was wearing a long dress. Another says there was a white rag tied over the bottom half of his face. Some people are convinced it isn't one man at all, it's a gang. Nobody can agree on anything. By now, Austin is a city living in pure terror. Men sleep with guns by the bed. Neighbors form patrols and walk the streets all night long. They bring in private detectives. And over the course of that single year, police arrest something like 400 men. 400. And not one of them is the killer. The New York Times runs it on the front page, calls him a cunning madman, insane on the subject of killing women. And then it goes quiet. Weeks pass, no attacks, and the city lets itself breathe, just a little. Maybe he's gone. Maybe he moved on. Maybe it's finally over. It's Christmas Eve, December 24th, 1885. That night, in one part of town, a woman named Susan Hancock is asleep in her bed. Susan is white, well off, described as one of the most refined ladies in all of Austin. And in the dark, he comes in, and he strikes her with an axe, and drives something thin and sharp straight through her ear, into her brain. Her husband, Moses, finds her in the backyard. But here's what freezes your blood. At almost the very same time, a mile away, he's doing it again. Her name is Eula Phillips. Young, barely 17. Married. A mother. Called one of the prettiest women in the city. He drags her out into the yard behind her in-laws' home. Her husband, Jimmy, is attacked too, wounded but alive. 2 women, 2 homes, 1 night, and this time, both of them are white. And now the whole city detonates, because the thing they'd all quietly told themselves, that it would never reach them, just got shattered on Christmas Eve. The police are desperate now. They need someone, anyone, so they turn on the husbands. Moses Hancock goes on trial for killing Susan, and the jury can't agree. Hung jury, he walks. Jimmy Phillips goes on trial for killing Eula, and this time witnesses come forward saying Jimmy had threatened, more than once, that if he ever caught Eula being unfaithful, he'd kill her. He's actually convicted, but then the conviction gets thrown out. Not enough evidence. And Walter Spencer, remember him? The boyfriend of the very first victim. He'd been dragged into it early on, put on trial, and cleared too. So one by one, every man they accuse walks free. And then something happens that's almost harder to explain than the murders themselves. They just stop. After that Christmas Eve, nothing. No more bodies. No more silent break-ins. No more dragging women out into the dark. Whoever he was, he simply vanished. And the killing was over as suddenly as it began. So who was he? Years later, investigators kept circling back to one name. A 19-year-old cook named Nathan Elgin. He'd worked close to where some of the murders happened. And here's the detail that gets under your skin. Elgin was missing his little toe. And at one of the crime scenes, there was a footprint, missing the exact same toe. In February of 1886, just weeks after that final Christmas Eve, Nathan Elgin was shot and killed by police while he was attacking a young girl with a knife. And after Nathan Elgin died, the Servant Girl Annihilator was never heard from again. But there's another theory, and this one travels. There was a cook working at a place in Austin called the Pearl House, a man named Maurice, and he had connections to a number of the victims. And right around the time the murders ended, Maurice left Austin. He went to New Orleans, and then he sailed all the way to London. And 3 years later, in the fog of London's East End, A killer starts pulling women into the dark and cutting them apart. A killer the world would come to know by one name: Jack the Ripper. Now, is it true? Did the man who terrorized Austin become the most infamous killer in history? There's no proof. None. It might be nothing but a chilling coincidence. But more than 140 years later, here's what we know for certain. 8 people dead, a city brought to its knees. The first serial killer to ever stalk an American city. 400 men arrested, not a single conviction that stuck. And to this day, we still don't know his name.